Hi, this is Stuart Nachbar with Educated Quest. We have a special Zoom today. This is about the College of Wooster in Wooster, Ohio, which is about an hour from Cleveland. And it is one of a unique school that has an approach to mentored research. Everyone must do a research project. It's almost like a master's thesis for a graduate degree. The only school I know of that does it, and that's been publicized by the college itself, is Princeton. And that's only because I happen to live not far from Princeton. You do not go, however, you do not go from high school to mentored research, in the speed of a rocket. It's a bunch of steps along the way. And with me today is Cathy Finks. She is the executive director for admissions at the College of Wooster. And Cathy invited two students to join her today who know the school really well. They're both seniors. Rachel Osterhouse is a sociology and political science major. Doug Morris is a neurobiology major who is a music minor. And this school is also quite strong in music. If you love music and you do not want to go to a school in a conservatory setting, this might be your school. So, guys, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Stuart, for having us.
And Cathy, obviously Rachel and Doug are standouts. They've helped you. They're very supportive of the school. For those who are still in high school, what type of high school student would be attracted to the College of Wooster versus another liberal arts college or a state school or a mid-sized school?
Yeah, I think that's always on top of mind, right? How do you feel out that difference, the nuanced differences between some liberal arts schools that often kind of sound alike or look alike on paper? One of the things I think that our students at Worcester have in common is that they tend to be very curious learners who want to be engaged in academics in a very different way, unique way that you talked about with our mentored research, which I'll talk about here in a second. But I also think that Worcester, and it's not just something we say, it's something you can feel and really see when you're here, but our students are really open to all types of students. They're really compassionate. They're here because they want that sense of community. It's a really easy place to come and join in. It's a place that's pretty welcoming. It's a place that's less cliquey. And so I think that you get that feel of like, this is going to be a place I can come and have and be my home, but be that highly engaged academic student who's okay with that, who wants to learn, who wants to go forward. And so I think that you'll see that sense. Doug, is that something that you found when you came to Worcester?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very easy to kind of move, across the country, 12 hours from home. And I never really felt like I was, lonely or alone. There was always someone to turn to. There's a great community here. I think also what sets Worcester apart from other, maybe some smaller liberal arts colleges is our incredible amount of diversity on campus. And that's not just, racial and national diversity, because we do have a lot of that as well, but it's also different aspects like sexuality, socioeconomic status. It's really just a place where you can come and learn about a whole spectrum of perspectives. And I think that that's been a really kind of critical aspect in my learning and becoming just kind of a global citizen.
Rachel, could you share your observations of the community and the campus?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but I am from very close by, about 40 minutes. So there definitely wasn't like a culture shock of being far from home, but I still didn't feel like I was in the same bubble I was back in my hometown. I feel like the community of Worcester, especially as a college, is very welcoming and, like Doug said, very diverse. So I got to meet people from all different backgrounds. Most of my friends live out of state. There are a ton of international students as well. So I definitely found like a very supportive community. And I think that that's what Worcester students, like a character trait that we all share, is that we're very supportive and open-minded.
If you were to walk from one end of the campus to the other on any given day, from where you live to your next class, let's say, how likely is it that you'll run into people who come from maybe 3 or 4 different places?
very likely. Like,
Doc-
I think, I think it, I think it's even smaller than that, or more, if you were going to any single one class, average class size is pretty small, about 15 to 17 in an average class. You're going to find people who are not only from a different state or across the country, but you're going to find, I would say, at least 3 different students from different countries, 3 different languages spoken, 3 different religions, at a minimum. And I think that's what's so unique about Worcester, and why Doug's, so rightly so talked about our diversity. It's not just walking across campus and that socialization, but you bring it into that academic piece too, which is really fascinating. If you're going to be in small classes and talking to professors and talking to students, you want that diversity. You want to know how a different perspective might answer a question or think through a response. So would you say that's fair?
Are you in the major that you originally planned on when you came to Worcester?
Yeah, I am. I knew leaving high school that I really wanted to do neuroscience. I also had this idea that I wanted to potentially double major in music. I ended up not double majoring, but for the most part, yes, I've stuck to my goals from 4 years ago.
And Rachel, did you change your mind, or did you stick with what you planned on?
I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I wasn't really gravitating towards the STEM fields. I knew I kind of wanted to do a social science or humanities, but I had zero idea what I wanted to major in. I didn't even decide until sophomore year, but I had a lot of time to try things out. And definitely having an advisor really helped me as well, stay on track, but also be able to try things. And I think that that's a really great thing about Worcester, is that you don't come in with a declared major. You have time to decide things and try different things out, especially with the liberal arts curriculum as well.
Cathy, do most people walk in undecided?
Um, we don't make students, it's a fair question. I don't have a great answer. We don't make students declare when they're coming in. And so I don't have a great percentage, but I do work with ARCH, which is our orientation, where they do pick their classes, their first 4 classes of the first semester. And we see a fair number of students who are like, I like so many things. How do I narrow it down? How do I pick just 4 classes for my first semester? Or there are some like Doug who are like, this is my path. I want to start it and I want to do this. And both, you can do both here at Worcester, right? You can start down a path, you can start down a path like Rachel's, which is very different, which is undecided, and figure out, who do I like, what do I like, who am I as a learner, and then kind of go forward from there. So I think our core curriculum, Stuart, just to add on to that a minute, is designed in such that it's not just a checkbox of classes that you have to take. It's designed that, there are these large groups of classes that fit into any category for these core classes, so that students can take a class over here, take a different class in a different discipline, take a third class in a totally separate area. And as they're trying to navigate that process, really see how those disciplines are really more connected than they are separate, and look for some. I think it also leads a lot of our students to not just have obviously a major when they graduate, but when you look at the graduation booklet, when they're the commencement graduation booklet, most of our students, the vast majority, have at least a minor, if not 2 minors. And I think that again goes back to that curious learner, someone who's willing to step out of that comfort zone, try some different things, and see how those disciplines connect.
Interesting you touch on that, because we're going to going to mentored research. One of the things, when I listened to the virtual session, it talked about in the sophomore year writing within the disciplines. And if you take courses in writing in the disciplines, do they necessarily have to be in your declared major, or could they just be in something that's related and you get the writing experience?
I can answer this. So for your sophomore year writing intensive, I think that a lot of students do choose to take a writing course that's within their major, because it teaches you how to write for that field of interest that you're studying. However, there are students that don't. I took my writing intensive in an Africana Studies course because I was interested in that course specifically, and that fulfilled my credit. But I think that a lot of most, if not all of the classes at Worcester are geared towards kind of helping you to become a better researcher anyway. So I was confident in the fact that I was going to take other classes throughout my time before getting to our independent study that would help me to kind of facilitate putting together my own thesis and knowing how to write scientifically. So yeah, I didn't take a writing intensive course within my major, but I didn't feel like that set me back at all.
Walk me through, since both of you have a little bit some differences in the major paths you chose. Walk me through, you're a freshman at the College of Wooster. Rachel, you're trying to think about a major. Doug, you know your major. From the first semester there to now, walk me through how mentored research developed, how you got ideas for what you might want to study. You got ideas for, you chose a writing course, a little different. Rachel, you chose one. Junior year, you have an IS course, and then senior year is the IS. Walk me through that for each of you very briefly, if you can.
Yeah, so you pretty much got it down. You come into Worcester and you take a class called a first year seminar, which is basically a smaller class that teaches you how to read, write, and think like a college student. So you'll start doing college level work that you probably weren't doing in high school. And these classes are on a wide variety of subjects, so it doesn't have to be within your major. And within that class, your professor is your advisor coming into the school. So like I mentioned, having an advisor right off the bat really helped me decide on my major, but also not get behind in my requirements. So you have an advisor throughout your entire time here, but coming in, your advisor is your first year seminar professor. So I took my first year seminar. It was called Global Issues and Engagement. And then I would meet with my advisor once every semester to plan my classes, and we would go through, you know, what kind of classes am I interested in taking to maybe discover a new major, but also the liberal arts core requirements, I could take some of those as well. So then sophomore year, I finally decided that I wanted to pursue sociology. So I declared my major and got a new advisor within the sociology department. And we moved on to junior year with the junior independent study, which kind of gets you thinking about ideas for your big project. For the sociology department, basically it's 2 theory classes, and at the end of each theory class you write a 12-page research paper, and one of the chapters in the sociology independent study is theory, so you can use some of the theories that you wrote about in your big project. And then senior year you get an independent study advisor. It can be your academic advisor that you already had, but they will be within your major. So my advisor is in the sociology department, and we meet once a week to go over my independent study and the progress that I'm making. So my independent study is on the stigma around women's health in sports. And I am using some of the theories that I used in my junior independent study, but I did kind of have some flexibility on deciding what my topic was based on the classes that I had already taken at Worcester. Like I took sociology of gender, which I based a lot of my research on. And yeah, that's basically how the process went for me.
Doug, same thing. Can you kind of walk me through your process?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Rachel, I had a first year seminar course. Mine was global health and inequality, because I was pretty interested in just kind of public health and the differences in health around the world and how we, you know, the infrastructure and all of that. And then going into my sophomore year, I took a Racism 101 course. So it was looking at the history of kind of racism in America throughout America's time. And that was a really eye-opening course. I think that that course for me, it helped me to learn how to write, not scientifically, but just kind of how to write if you ever need to do like more of a humanities kind of paper. Classes like that also teach you how to write professionally. So emails, you learn how to do that, learning how to write letters, cover letters, resumes, you do all of that stuff in first year seminar and a little bit in your sophomore writing intensive course too, depending on what course you take. And then also I was taking courses within the sciences where we have labs where they teach you how to make lab reports and teach you how to use specific resources to kind of aid you in your research. And then just like Rachel, I had a junior IS course. It's a little bit different for the typical science major than what I did. I took mine as a tutorial. So I did it one-on-one with my IS advisor. The reason I did that is because IS is usually offered junior year in the spring, but I was planning to go abroad at the time. So I took mine in the fall, one-on-one with an advisor. And we met every week, came up with a topic that I would be researching. I did the research in my own time. And then by the end of the semester, I had produced an introduction, kind of like a methods section, anticipated results, and then like an annotated bibliography. And then I chose to continue that research this past summer. So I was on campus for 8 weeks, doing the research in the lab. And then at the start of this year, I met with my IS advisor. I decided I wanted to completely change my topic, which is something you can do. I don't think a lot of people do that just because it's kind of like a lot of work to do junior IS and then completely change your topic. But I wasn't really feeling it anymore. And my advisor was like, hey, I'm all for that. I think that if you're going to be researching something for a whole year on top of, your other classes and your other activities, it should be something that you're at least a little bit interested in. So I have been working on that this year. The difference between senior IS and junior IS for me is that now I'm actually in the lab doing what I was researching last year. And by the end of when I'm done in the lab, I'll put together my thesis with my actual results and everything like that.
Cathy, is there like a poster session or something where after people finish the senior independent study, they get to show their work to the rest of the students?
Yeah, there is. And even before that session, which is the IS Symposium Day, we have a huge celebration on campus. We kind of call it the academic Mardi Gras of colleges, but every senior has to turn in their project the Monday after spring break, and we have a huge parade on campus. It's a huge celebration of all the hard work that the students have put in. But then on a more academic level, our IS Symposium Day, which is about around the last Friday in April every year, we cancel classes. Groups of 3 students pick various topics that might relate together, but you might have a sociology student, a biochem student, and a history student that all have a topic that relates somewhere around maybe an environmental cause. And they each give a brief description or a brief presentation of their project. And it happens all over campus in almost every single campus or lecture hall and bigger space that we have, which is hard to do on a small campus. But we have food trucks, we have alumni come back, and it's an amazing process to see how incredibly hard these students have worked. The kinds of topics that they talk about are just incredible. I learn something every year, but it's also great to just see how much they celebrate each other and how much it really is this collective we that kind of pulls everyone along to that point. So it's a fun day.
Aside from that, when you guys were considering other colleges, did you know about the mentored research at Wooster? And because you've had this opportunity, and I assume you keep in touch with friends or go to other schools, since you've had, how would you compare having this opportunity to go to someone who goes to another school where they don't have that opportunity?
Yeah, so I remember hearing about independent study and mentored research when I was looking at Wooster. And I was honestly very intimidated by it. But I think it gets less daunting when you get here and you see other people doing it. And also when you go through all of the steps leading up to it, it definitely gets more manageable. But in the beginning, I was very nervous about it. And I guess I didn't realize how hard it is at other schools to get your research published and do a thesis, and you have to be on a certain track or maybe a certain major. But I think it's so cool here that every single major gets to do it. And it just makes it seem like every single major is equally as valuable, which they definitely are. And I think that that's something that I really love about Wooster, and how just everyone has that undergraduate mentored experience and their own track that they go through. So yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, I'm just like Rachel said, I was completely overwhelmed by the idea of having to do an IS by the time I graduated as a freshman. But I think that as time goes by, you just kind of feel more and more prepared to kind of take on that kind of task. I think that when comparing, I couldn't imagine, honestly, going to college and not having to do some sort of senior capstone project. It doesn't really feel like enough to me to go to classes and then you have a degree. It's weird to me to think about it like that. I mean, even still, I feel as though a lot of what I've learned within my field of interest is specifically from doing research, whether that's IS or whether it's like in another class where we were encouraged to choose our own topics to just research for the semester. I think that when it comes to scientifically thinking about like biological and chemical pathways, it's just, for me, I don't learn them by just kind of sitting in a class or reading a textbook. I'm a very hands-on person, and I think that the research has really helped me to grow as a scientist, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to have done so at the College of Wooster.
Doug, when I first visited the College of Wooster, I heard that the school was especially helpful to people wanting to go into medicine and that there were opportunities outside of the classroom. Did you take advantage of those? And can you touch on them if you did?
Sure. The immediate thought when you say like opportunities outside of the classroom for me is the health coach program. The way that works is you would take your health coach seminar for a semester, and once a week there's a different doctor from the local hospital who comes in and they tell you about what they specialize in. You're learning how to take and read vitals, so blood pressure, you're looking at the heart rate, you're looking at, blood sugar, weight, all those things. And then by the end of the semester, you will have learned enough to then go out into the field the next semester, and you're paired with 1 or 2 patients who you'll meet in their home every week. And you kind of just work with the patient to kind of come up with some lifestyle improvements that you work on them with. And it's not just benefiting you because, I mean, it benefits the patients, but it also benefits the student in that you're learning bedside manner, which is something that is very, very hard to do as an undergrad student before you get into med school and before you're able to really, work in a hospital. You're learning that, there are people out there who have differences of opinions than you do, and you have to learn how to work with that professionally. And I think that's been something that I've had a pretty good, I've had to work with a lot. And I think that with the health coach program, it's just teaching you it's teaching you the things that you maybe wouldn't think of when you're thinking of like what makes a doctor a doctor. Outside of the health coach program, we have some pre-professional advisors. So we do have a pre-health advisor. She's very good at just making sure that you've taken all the classes that you need to even be eligible to apply to med school. They're setting you up with different MCAT prep courses. They kind of sit down with you and talk through like the differences between each prep course and maybe which one would be best suited for you. And then they also help you with coming up with your personal statement, getting your applications together, finding recommendations. They do mock interviews and stuff like that.
Rachel, what are your plans after graduation?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of applying to law schools right now. So just awaiting decisions for that. I'm not planning on taking a gap year. I also wasn't on the pre-law track, although we do have one. But even if you're not on the track, you can still utilize all of the resources in that field. So there are pre-law advisors. They have drop-in hours. They have law school fairs, LSAT prep things. So I've utilized a lot of those resources, even though I wasn't on the track.
Are there other opportunities beyond these that you'd want to make listeners aware of?
In terms of pre-professional tracks, we do also have a dental program with CASE where you take 3 years here at Worcester, and then you do you get your dental degree. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology, but you get your dentist piece of paper from Case Western, and then we also have one for engineering as well. I'm not sure if we have others.
Well, what I actually meant was more things that were that was helpful, but also things that are extracurricular, things that if people come to visit from high school, and obviously they can't study every minute of their life, what are some extracurriculars that they may want to think about walking in with maybe little talent, as opposed to, let's say, being a first chair musician in a band?
Yeah,
What are,
so there are so many student organizations at Worcester and things that you can be a part of. I do varsity athletics, but we also have intramural and club sports. And then we have many student organizations, like I said, that go from like academic to like arts. This isn't necessarily extracurricular, but we have great study abroad programs that I did second semester of my junior year. I studied abroad, which was great. And it was very easy to, transfer my classes back to Worcester, apply, plan the entire thing. So that's another great academic opportunity. And I know Doug does a lot of extracurriculars too.
but is there like one particular Wooster special kind of thing?
In terms of activities, there's not one that comes to mind. I think that whatever interest you have, there is a club for it. And if there's not if there happens to not be a club on campus for it, it's very easy to start your own group. I've started 2 in my time of being a student here at Worcester. Like the example you gave, if you're not like a first chair musician, we do have ensemble groups where you do audition to be part of those, but we also have ensemble groups where anybody can sign up with any level of talent. So for example, we have the Worcester Chorus that meets 4 days a week, and that is an auditioned group. That's a group of about 60 to 70 singers right now. But we also have what's called the Worcester Singers, and that's a group that meets just twice a week. So maybe if you don't want to commit to, 7 hours of rehearsal a week, you can do maybe 2 to 3 hours a week with the Worcester Singers. And they're just as fun to watch when you go to see them in concert. I imagine that it's the same way for the band and the orchestra. We also have 7 a cappella groups on campus, maybe 8. And those all have kind of a different feel to them. So it's really just about, what kind of commitment you want to have with a student organization, and then you kind of just go from there based off of your interests.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, I think it is 8 different a cappella groups. And I think that's one of the things that even I brought up in the beginning. It's just so easy to come and find that niche, kind of find that area where you belong, whether it's, playing Quidditch or, our mock trial team actually qualifies more for nationals, our moot court team, than we can send every year, or joining our Yenny Investment Club, which actually has $4 million, might be more at this point, where they have total control. They each get 1 vote. There's only 1 advisor professor that has 1 vote along with them. But it's a place where you can come and make a real impact. Our student government organization, they actually have representatives that sit in on all of our various board of trustee meetings. And so we want them to come and be active, but find those passions that they can do. Maybe not because you're going to be a music major, not because you're going to be a theater major, you're not going to be a professional athlete, but just come and have that experience too. So.
And last question. This is the only school I've ever learned about, whether I visited or did this virtual, where people play bagpipes. Were either of you tempted to learn?
I am not musical at all, but I want to wear the kilts.
Yeah, I think the kilts would be the only reason I would consider learning. No, they practice very early in the morning too, which is not something I'm interested in.
Well, I want to thank you guys for the time. This was a lot of fun, and you guys represent the school very well. And you've given some good information to people who are going to face some very difficult decisions about what school to choose and what school they'd like to be an alum. And so I really thank you for that. And I wish you well.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.